Welcome to the journey dashboard for week 1 of my Zepbound and recovery journey. Each week, I'll use this dashboard to break down the numbers, track my progress, and document how things are changing over time. This week, I started at 350 pounds and finished at 343 pounds, for a total loss of 7 pounds in my first week. It's only the beginning, and 1 week doesn't define the journey, but it's an encouraging start. Now let's dive into the data and see exactly how week 1 unfolded. Now that you've seen the overall results, here's a quick look at how the first week came together. I finished week 1 down 7 pounds, while averaging 1,796 calories, 132 grams of protein, 128 ounces of water, and just over 9 hours of sleep per night. The week started with my very first 2.5 milligram Zepbound injection. The first couple of days went pretty smoothly, with only some minor sulfur burps. Around the middle of the week, my appetite picked up, and toward the end of the week, I started experiencing GI side effects, which ended up being the biggest challenge of the week. Even with those challenges, I stayed committed to the plan. I kept working on my nutrition, stayed hydrated, and continued focusing on my recovery through physical therapy. Looking back, there were definitely highs and lows, but if there's one lesson that stands out, it's this: consistency over perfection. I didn't need a perfect week. I just needed to keep making the next good decision. With week 1 complete, I had a solid foundation to build on, so let's take a closer look at each part of the journey. Yes, this was my first week taking Zepbound at the 2.5 milligram starting dose. The graph shows the estimated amount of tirzepatide in my body across the week. It rose from an estimated 0.97 milligrams on day 1 to a high of 1.98 milligrams on day 3, then gradually declined to about 0.90 milligrams by day 7. These are only estimates based on typical medication buildup and decay, not measured blood levels. During the week, I experienced the following symptoms to various degrees. See the chart for the full daily breakdown. My appetite was up and down, with hunger highest on days 3 and 4. I had slight nausea on day 1, sulfur burps from days 2 through 4, and GI symptoms that began increasing on day 5. By days 6 and 7, the main issue was severe diarrhea. Overall, the medication effects and side effects changed as the week progressed, which is exactly why I want to keep tracking the estimated medication level alongside how I felt each day. One of my biggest goals this week was building better eating habits instead of chasing perfection. For the week, I averaged 1,796 calories, 132 grams of protein, and 128 ounces of water each day. Looking at the chart, you can see my calories and protein changed from day to day, but I stayed pretty consistent overall. My higher calorie days also tended to be my higher protein days, which helped me stay on track with my nutrition goals. Most of my meals came from a small group of foods that made it easier to hit my protein target. I relied heavily on meal replacement shakes, chicken, string cheese, protein bars, meat sticks, and avocado. Keeping things simple meant I spent less time deciding what to eat and more time sticking with the plan. Water intake averaged 128 ounces per day, and staying hydrated became a daily priority throughout the week. One thing I've learned already is that consistency matters more than having a perfect day. Some days were higher, some were lower, but by focusing on my calorie goals, prioritizing protein, and keeping my meals simple, I finished the week in a much better position than where I started. Recovery is still my #1 priority, and this week I focused on staying consistent. I completed 2 physical therapy sessions, along with 6 30-minute indoor bike sessions from my wheelchair using different resistance levels. I also continued working with resistance bands to strengthen my legs and feet and improve control and mobility. At the beginning of the week, it honestly felt like this might just be my new normal. But as the week went on, I gradually started feeling like I was making progress beyond that new normal. None of the improvements were dramatic overnight, but they started to add up. Every therapy session, every bike ride, and every exercise felt like another step in the right direction. Recovery from my spinal surgery is going to take time, and I'm learning that consistency matters just as much here as it does with nutrition or weight loss. My focus isn't on rushing the process. It's on putting in the work every day and trusting that those small improvements will continue to build over time. That's the mindset I'm taking into week 2. Keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and let the progress come one step at a time. This first week wasn't just about losing weight. It was about building better habits. One of the biggest changes I made was focusing on consistency instead of perfection. Every day I tried to stay within my calorie goals, prioritize protein, drink plenty of water, and keep moving forward with my recovery. Hydration became part of my daily routine, averaging 128 ounces of water a day, and I kept showing up for both my physical therapy sessions and my home exercises. Those small decisions started adding up. I also learned that progress isn't always obvious in the moment. At times, it felt like this was just my new normal, but by the end of the week, I could already tell that staying consistent was beginning to make a difference. That's probably my biggest takeaway from week 1. Success isn't about having one perfect day. It's about making the next good decision, then repeating it again tomorrow. As I head into week 2, my goal is simple. Keep building on these habits, stay patient, trust the process, and let consistency do the work over time. So that's a look back at my first week on Zepbound. The numbers are encouraging. Down 7 pounds, averaging 1,796 calories, 132 grams of protein, and 128 ounces of water each day. But more importantly, I feel like I've started building habits that I can actually stick with. Recovery is still my biggest priority. Between physical therapy, my bike sessions, improving my nutrition, and simply showing up every day, I finally feel like I'm moving in the right direction. If there's one lesson I learned this week, it's that consistency beats perfection. I didn't have a perfect week, and I don't expect to have a perfect journey. What matters is making the next good decision and continuing to build on it. Looking ahead to week 2, the plan doesn't really change. I'll keep focusing on my calorie range, hitting my protein goal, staying hydrated, showing up for physical therapy, and trusting the process. This is only week 1, and I know there will be ups and downs along the way, but I'm excited to document the journey honestly, the successes, the setbacks, and everything in between. If you've made it this far, thank you for following along. If you're on your own weight loss or recovery journey, I'd love to hear how it's going in the comments. And if you'd like to follow my progress, consider giving me a follow and a like so you don't miss next week's update. We'll see what week 2